Okay, so it's been a while since I've done any NHL content. We're looking at the Edmonton Oilers because they sacked Jay Woodcroft over the weekend and replaced him with Kris Knoblauch. Now, Knoblauch was Connor McDavid's head coach in juniors, so there's a relationship with the player on the team, the captain, the star player. But this is 12 coaches in 15 years. They've only had 5 playoff appearances in that time frame. And that is quite troubling. Now, in more recent years, they've been regular playoff appearances. They've only reached the conference final once. They failed to get out the qualifying round in 2020, failed to get out the first round in 2021, out the Canadian division, got swept by my team, the Jets, 4-0, and were, well, just swept. So there you go. And they got to the second round at the end of last season. So this summer just gone, and the season before they made the conference final. So they've been now making the playoffs on a regular basis. The only other previous playoff appearance since 2008 was in the 2016-2017 season. And they made the second round. Other than that, no playoffs. The current record is 3-9-1. The only team with a worse record right now in the league is the San Jose Sharks, who are a tire fire, and their goal differential is shocking. But the Oilers' goal differential is pretty poor, and the depth scoring isn't there. Apart from Draisaitl and Nugent Hopkins and a handful of other players, they're not scoring. And last year with McDavid's season, Draisaitl's season, and Nugent Hopkins, all of them scoring over 100 points, we're thinking, hang on a second, the 80s style Oilers are back and they're going to be regular playoff performers and challenging for Stanley Cups. That it's not happening this season. Even with a coaching change and Knoblauch being McDavid's former junior coach, I can't see them at this current time doing a St. Louis Blues and coming from the depths of nowhere and making a Stanley Cup final and winning the whole thing, because they've left themselves so much work to do, not only in the Pacific Division, but the Western Conference as a whole. So let's have a look at all the coaching turnover since 2008. So in 2008, Craig MacTavish is the coach. He would still be the coach in 2009 before being replaced by Pat Quinn, who comes in 2009. Pat Quinn himself is replaced in 2010 by Tom Rennie. Now, Tom Rennie would hang around till 2012 before being replaced by Ralph Krueger. Ralph Krueger himself is replaced in 2013 by Dallas Eakins, who midway through the following 2014-2015 season is sacked. Now, Todd Nelson was only as an interim. He wasn't a permanent replacement. And this is the season before they draft McDavid. Todd Nelson obviously would not be given the job full time. I felt he did a better job than Dallas Eakins that season with his win percentage, but he was only ever going to be an interim coach. He knew that from the moment he was appointed, that he wasn't going to get the job full time. They were looking for Todd McLellan. Now, Todd McLellan comes in. They draft McDavid. The first season, McDavid has a few injuries, misses quite a bit of the season, doesn't have a full season in his rookie year. They don't make the playoffs. Todd McLellan would be the coach of note when they finally break their playoff drought. They got to the second round in 2017. Todd McLellan would still be around in 2018 before being replaced by Ken Hitchcock. Hitchcock would be there in 2019 before being replaced by Dave Tippett, who had obviously been at the Arizona Coyotes, formerly Phoenix Coyotes, for a lengthy period of time, long-time coach there. Dave Tippett is seen as the guy to get the best out with David, Draisaitl and Nugent Hopkins. Dave Tippett would hang around until 2022. In this period, Dave Tippett starts getting them to the playoffs. They get to the qualifying round in the COVID-disrupted 2019-2020 season. He would get them to the first round out of the Canadian division in the delayed 2021 season. And then, obviously, he was the coach of note when they get, to start the 2021-2022 season before Jay Woodcroft comes in. They make a conference final, and then Jay Woodcroft is obviously the coach of note in the 2022-2023 season, where they make the second round at the end of last season. Didn't progress past the second round, but they make the playoffs again, so they're backing up what they did the previous year before, obviously, the start of this season, where they're 3-9-1, terrible record, and even though they win their last game with him in charge, he is sacked over the weekend and replaced by Kris Knoblauch. Now, Knoblauch, as I say, was Connor McDavid's junior coach, so there is that connection with the captain and the best player in the league. Then you've got the second best player in the league, in my opinion, in Leon Draisaitl on an attacking standpoint. But the problem is, I personally think Nugent Hopkins should be the captain, because he's potentially one of the best two-way forwards in the game. He had an outstanding career year last year, getting over 100 points. The only reason I don't think he wins the Selke is because it's Patrice Bergeron's his last season. Um, any other year, he wins the Selke. He had a fantastic season in his own right, and not all his goals and assists were involving McDavid and Draisaitl. So he really is the heart and soul of this team. He stuck around when the team was really bad before Draisaitl and McDavid come along. They've had some shocking seasons since the 2007-2008 season. Some shocking seasons, really struggling near the bottom of the league. And it was in 2016-2017 season that we're starting to see some positivity. They make the playoffs. And since the 2019-2020 season, they've been regularly in the playoffs. So I think the main issue here is currently Ken Holland is the GM, and he's been in there now for several years. But Peter Chiarelli was the previous GM. There's been some bad drafting, some bad contracts in there. So a lot lies with the current and previous general managers. A lot lies, obviously, with the organisation going through 12 head coaches since the 2008-2009 season. 12 head coaches. That is no way to build momentum, build a style of play, build a culture, and therefore build stability. I don't think they make the playoffs this year. I could be wrong, but I can't see the team right now with the lack of depth scoring doing what St. Louis, the Blues, did in 2019, going from bottom of the league on January 1st to winning the Stanley Cup 6 months later. Can't see them doing them right now. Their defence is too porous. The goal scoring depth isn't there. I think Draisaitl and McDavid and potentially Nugent Hopkins aren't fully fit. I think Nugent Hopkins, is the heartbeat of the team, going as a two-way centre, and his scoring is down from last year's career year, which was very hard to repeat. Although the rate of points he's putting up right now, he's looking at about 80 to 90 points this season, so not at the same level as last year, but still a decent season. Draisaitl is the top point scorer on the team at the moment. McDavid is well down the point scoring list. He's not 100%. That's quite clear. Draisaitl, is he 100%? Are these players playing through injury? Will Ken Holland decide just to go, right, we're going to put these guys on injured reserve or long-term injured reserve, make some trades, because they've got some big contracts on the team. And the other issue is that they're too cap heavy with 4 players. Obviously, there's a lot of money tied up in their goaltending, which is not performing. There's a lot of money tied up in their defence, which is not performing. Evander Kane isn't scoring. So a lot of their cap is tied up with 3 or 4 players, very similar to Toronto. So their current record isn't great, diabolical, and only the San Jose Sharks are worse than them right now in the league standings, in the division, in the conference, in the league, and they're going through a rebuild. So this team was meant to be one of the contenders for the Stanley Cup. It's not looking very likely at the moment. Something has happened in the off-season. They've started the season really slowly. Goaltending hasn't been good enough. Jack Campbell's now in the minors. His record in the minors after a couple of games is pretty shocking. Goals per against average, save percentage, not great. So how I mean, I wish Kris Knoblauch the best of luck. I think he's in for if he can start getting McDavid and Draisaitl and Nugent Hopkins, getting them going, maybe they can get 3 or 4. They can't roll 4 lines, but if they can get at least 3 lines scoring, some depth scoring going, I think that could potentially kickstart some momentum. But we'll see. They've got a very, very tough schedule going from now till Christmas. Really tough schedule. A lot of the teams they're going to be coming up against are in form, playing really well. There's a couple of winnable games in there, but with their current lack of scoring and current goaltending and defensive-wise, if they have a couple of bad results, that could be the end of their season and playoff hopes. And we could be repeating 2008 all the way through to 2016 of where we were before. There's been a lot of promise with this team since 2017, but there is something about the Oilers organisation since the 2004-2005 lockout where this team cannot build momentum, cannot make the postseason. A lot of that's to do with drafting. Some bad contracts have been signed, And a lot of that does lie with Ken Holland and Peter Schiarelli, the previous GM. We have to look at some of the trades and some of the contracts signed and how the team is put together. We have to look at the player development. Their drafting has been all over the place. Nugent Hopkins obviously was a very good pickup, obviously in the draft. Draisaitl and McDavid as well. But then we have to look beyond that with player development, with Puljujarvi, for example, Yamamoto's. Some of these other high draft picks have not really panned out. Obviously, you've got the Niall Yakupov disaster, and I don't think this team wants to be drafting first, second, or third overall. I don't think that's part of the planning that Ken Holland had when he comes in to replace Peter Schiarelli, and how the team's done in recent seasons by making the playoffs and being in the playoffs and being in the conversation. I don't think that was in the team's planning to suddenly be outside the playoffs, struggling and looking up rather than looking down at teams. They're looking up at a lot of points behind their opposition. Vegas and LA. Anaheim are having a great start to the season. They are really far behind. The Central is a far more competitive division. The Pacific's a bit of a mess. We might have 5 teams get out the Central and 3 out the Pacific that make the playoffs. And they are behind the curveball. So we'll see what happens. We'll see how Kris Knoblauch does as the new head coach. But you look at that coaching turnover, you look at the lack of playoff appearances in the entire time frame, although, as I say, more recent seasons, they are more competitive. Can he turn the ship around? Can they get some momentum? Can they get some wins? Because they've won 3 out of 13 games. That is not a great win percentage on the season. They are lagging behind their rivals in the division, the rivals in the conference, and they have a very tough schedule coming up in the next 2 months. So we'll see how the next couple of weeks goes. How does the coaching change shake things up a bit? Does Ken Holland, see out the season as GM? There's a lot of rumours saying that he may retire at the end of the season or leave at the end of the season because his contract's up. Does it need a new GM to shake things up as well as a new coach? Because I feel sorry for Jay Woodcroft. I think a lot of the issues lie with the GM and the players not performing personally. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. I would like to hear from Oilers fans about the coaching change. I feel sorry for Jay Woodcroft. I really do. But you look at that coaching turnover. It's very, very hard to build an identity, build a style, and build a culture that wins when you have 12 coaches in 15 years. That's nearly a coach every 12 months, if you look at it that way. Quite shocking. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll have some more content for you very, very soon.